Warsaw had fallen. The air still smelled of smoke and burnt paper, as if the city itself had exhaled its last breath. In the ruins of the capital, German soldiers moved cautiously through streets once lined with cafes and laughter. To the west, in Berlin, Hitler stood before his generals, eyes gleaming with triumph. "Poland is finished," he declared, his voice echoing off the marble walls of the chancellery. Yet for all the jubilation, a chill ran through the corridors of power. The war he had unleashed was not supposed to last. In Britain and France, men still dug trenches, waiting for an enemy that did not yet come. Europe held its breath. Beneath the victory parades, beneath the banners and the drums, lingered the question no one dared to speak aloud. What now? For every cannon fired, there was a mother waiting, a silence deepening across the continent, heavy with unspoken dread.
October 6, 1939. The grand hall of the Reichstag was filled with camera flashes and the tense hum of anticipation. Joseph Goebbels orchestrated every movement, every lens, preparing for the Führer's address to the world. "Hitler will speak of peace," he whispered to his aides, a faint smile curling at his lips. In a small radio room in London, an English translator leaned forward, headphones pressed to his ears. Across the airwaves came Hitler's voice, calm, deliberate, almost measured. He offered peace to Britain and France, declaring he did not wish the destruction of Europe. The translator frowned, hearing the chill beneath the words. In Downing Street, ministers exchanged uneasy glances. Could the architect of Poland's ruins truly speak of peace? On factory floors, in pubs, in homes, the people listened and hoped, even as bombers idled in readiness.
In London, fog rolled over the Thames as the Foreign Office convened. Neville Chamberlain sat, pale and drawn, tapping his pencil against the polished table. Beside him, Lord Halifax studied a transcript of the speech, his lips tight. "A peace built on conquest," Halifax muttered. "There can be no trust in this." The cabinet wrestled with exhaustion and the fresh memory of Munich, a year's worth of lies. Outside, citizens lined by-night newsstands, reading headlines of "Peace Offer from Berlin." Some clung to the dream that the killing might stop before it began. Others remembered Czechoslovakia and shook their heads. The air was thick with doubt. Across the Channel, German diplomats awaited a reply that would never come. Hitler had cast his bait, gilded with eloquence, but the democracies of the West had learned enough about the poison behind his promises.
In Paris, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs buzzed like a hive. French diplomats shifted nervously, arguing in hushed tones behind closed doors. "If the British reject it, we must stand with them," one said. Another, older and weary, sighed. "Or perhaps this is our last chance to spare France from ruin." Premier Daladier studied the reports, the photographs of Polish bodies beside German tanks. The enormity of it pressed down on him. He knew the meaning of Hitler's peace, submission disguised as mercy. Outside the golden windows, Parisians read the headlines, their hearts divided between relief and dread. That night, Daladier wrote a simple note to Chamberlain. France stood firm. In Berlin, the message arrived like a stone dropped into cold water. The mask of diplomacy had cracked. The war, however still, was not about to end.
Within the confines of the Chancellery, Hitler paced like a caged beast. His peace offer had been met with silence, no applause, no acceptance. "Fools," he shouted, striking the desk. "They do not see I offer Europe salvation." Goering smoked quietly in the corner. Ribbentrop scribbled in a notebook, eyes avoiding his leader's fury. Outside, the streets of Berlin were calm. Posters proclaimed victory in Poland, yet the sound of marching boots carried an undertone of dread. Housewives queued for rations, young men arrived for conscription. Over the radio, German citizens heard reports of Allied stubbornness, twisting refusal into justification. The illusion of peace began to crumble. In his private circle, Hitler's mind turned eastward, already envisioning the next campaign, even as Europe's leaders still debated his words.
In a small English town, a young clerk named Harold Bennett sat in a candlelit kitchen writing to his brother on the Maginot Line. He paused, the ink trembling at the edge of his pen. "They say Hitler wants peace," he wrote. "I hope it's true, though I doubt it." His mother stirred tea in silence, radio murmuring distant speeches. Across Europe, millions like him balanced between hope and fear, their letters filled with cautious dreams. In Berlin, a schoolteacher read the Führer's offer and dared to imagine her son would not be sent east. Yet somewhere deep down, people knew better. The planes still drained above the clouds, the trains still carried soldiers toward the frontier. The world waited in the fragile quiet between wars, hearts whispering prayers that history would not repeat its bloodiest verses.
By late October, the illusion of peace dissolved like frost in the sun. French patrols reported skirmishes along the frontier, and British troops moved quietly into their new positions. In muddy trenches stretching from the Meuse to the Saar, soldiers smoked in silence, staring east. "They say he wanted peace," one muttered, adjusting his rifle. "Then why are we still here?" The so-called phony war had begun, a strange lull where both sides prepared, but neither struck. Yet every night the searchlights swept the heavens, and every rumble of engines reminded them the storm was only sleeping. Far away in Berlin, Hitler studied maps in feverish calculation, his peace offer now a tool for propaganda, the next move already set in motion. The front was silent, but every soldier could feel it, calm before the next firestorm. Across German cinemas, sleek reels played scenes of Hitler extending his hand in magnanimity. Orchestra music swelled, while newspapers spoke of Britain's arrogance and France's ingratitude. Goebbels's propaganda machine thundered into motion, shaping a narrative of German victimhood. In a smoky cafe in Berlin, a young journalist named Anna Weber watched the screenings and scribbled in her notebook. "Peace through conquest," she whispered bitterly. She had seen the photographs from Warsaw. She knew what lay behind those images. Yet public opinion bent under the weight of repetition. The people wanted to believe, for belief was easier than truth. Above the screens, the swastika banners rippled like ominous waves under the projector's artificial light. The peace offer had failed diplomatically, but domestically it had become a weapon more potent than any tank.
In London, the final diplomatic reply was short and clear. Britain would not discuss peace while German troops occupied Poland. The message traveled through encrypted channels, typed by unseen hands, decoded beneath flickering lamps. No grand announcement followed. The words were deliberate and restrained, yet behind them burned the resolve of an empire. Chamberlain stared at the communiqué one last time before setting it down. "Then it begins," he murmured. Outside, Big Ben chimed over a city cloaked in mist and anticipation. The war that Hitler claimed he didn't want was now inevitable. The peace offer faded into history's long ledger of deceit. Yet within that moment of stillness, the world stood between two futures, one imagined, one real, and chose defiance.
Winter crept across Europe. The guns along the Western Front rusted in the cold mist, yet beneath the stillness, gears of war turned relentlessly. Hitler's peace offer had failed, not through misunderstanding, but through mutual recognition. Europe now understood the true nature of his ambition. In a Paris café, soldiers joked softly, warming their hands near a brazier. In Berlin, Hitler stood again before his maps, eyes fixed on the west. The next campaign was already forming in his mind: Belgium, the Low Countries, France. For a fleeting moment, the world had hovered between peace and cataclysm. But the die had been cast. The offer of October 1939 was not the end of conflict. It was the overture to the inferno that would consume 6 years of human history.